Hey y'all, it's Laura and welcome to day 6 of my Scraptember Video a Day Marathon. This is a collaboration with the Scrappy Sisters and Christy's Beautiful Life, and our special guest for today is Vanessa Bell. We also have a lovely group of ladies joining us. All are linked in the description box below. Now, fussy cutting is our prompt today. As you saw, I did a little video magic there, and Fussy cut a whole page of florals before your eyes. That was fun. And I am going to be doing quite a bit of fussy cutting using this September Freckled Fawn kit for this Traveler's Notebook layout. Now, I have had some questions about Traveler's Notebooks and why you would choose to work in this size. For me personally, I am using the Traveler's Notebook to document my childhood photos. And the reason that I'm using the Traveler's Notebook size is because my photos are not great quality for the most part. And so I'm having to print them very small. And for me personally, I don't love scrapping tiny photos on large layouts. It just creates too much space to fill, and I feel like the photos get quite lost. So my preference is if I have small photos that I scrap them in a smaller size, and I also want this project to be incredibly accessible, not only to me, but to my kids to look through, and using the smaller size definitely makes that easier. I find my children reach for the smaller sized albums far more often than they do the larger ones because 12 by 12 albums can be unwieldy, to put it mildly. So by scrapping these particular photos, which are very near and dear to my heart, in a smaller size, they're more accessible to them and to myself in the future when, let's say, I have to downsize heavily of my albums, I will still have these that I can very easily keep. The Traveler's Notebook size comes with a couple of album options. So you can scrapbook into a notebook that is bound. Usually it's stitched or stapled. And it's really just like a paper notebook. And you can put it into a cover, into a Traveler's Notebook cover that has little bands that hold it into place. But I am actually using the Freckled Fawn album. So it's a Traveler's Notebook ring album. And it has four rings on it and holds everything securely in place. I really enjoy this album, and it's my preferred way to do Traveler's Notebooks. That's partially because I don't scrap flat. I can't do it. I've tried. It's too hard. I am a layerer. I layer all the things. And so while I do things like pull off the back of the chipboard, like these hearts, the heart that I've added there, the green one, has a chipboard backing that I have ripped off, and I do try to make it as flat as possible. But if you're doing a lot of layering like I do, it's going to be bulky. So it's easier, better for me to use the albums that give me a little bit more space to work with, and I have multiple albums that I use for each grouping of years of my life. If you guys would like to see what I have done so far in these albums, let me know, and I will do maybe a live kind of explaining with a little bit more detail and showing you examples of the different kinds of Traveler's Notebooks and how I use them. I would be more than happy to do that. Let me know in the comments below. But back to the layout. I have some beautiful washi tape florals, and I love these. I wasn't sure at first if I really liked them. It really depended on how they would look on the page, because as you know, washi can be a little finicky. But on a white cardstock background, they just look like ephemera. They just look like stickers, and I adore them. They're so pretty. They're so vibrant. And I end up using one tucked in between my photos on the bottom left, and I'm going to use another one on the opposite page. Now, I have two different size pages here, and that might be throwing you a bit. The page on the left will be outside of the page protector. The page on the right will be inside a page protector. I've done a variety of both. So the page on the left is the actual size of the page protector. So it sits completely flush with the page protectors. And when you're flipping through, I like having both textural, out of the pocket pages and also in the pocket protected pages. So have a little bit of both in the album, so that's another thing to keep in mind. I did decide to go with this grid because I want to have a lot of journaling on this one. I am specifically talking about the fact that when I was a teenager, I was obsessed with the idea of becoming a mom. I don't know why, I don't know what prompted it, but even from a very young age. The bottom picture here, I am 13 years old and I am holding one of my baby cousins. And I was completely obsessed with the concept of having kids, even at that age. I knew I wanted a lot of kids, and I knew that being mom was one of my main goals in life. That's not going to be true for everyone, and everyone should follow their own path by all means. But for me, that was pivotal in my mind to being happy. So no one's surprised when I ended up having 5 children. Least of all my parents. They were not surprised. But when I found these photos, I thought this was the perfect opportunity to talk about this and kind of just self-evaluate a little bit as to maybe why this was so important to me, why this was such a priority at such a young age. But I did end up having my first child at 19. Which I don't recommend for other people, but for me, I thought it was the right thing to do, and it's worked out. I have a junior in high school who is quite happy with his life, so it worked out, but I don't recommend it for others. It's rather young to get started. So this layout is all about that. Up here in the top right, just like in the sketch, so if you remember the sketch from the very beginning, I know that was like 7 minutes ago, but the bottom left is where the photos go, with a little cluster of embellishments around them. The top right, there was another cluster. So I'm just mimicking this on a smaller scale. I've put all of my photos at the bottom left of the left side of the layout, and I put my title, journaling, and a small cluster at the top right. So I'm really mimicking the style, but I've shrunk it down to fit a traveler's notebook. As you can see, I've got all of my journaling in place. I'm going to add a little bit to this label as well as to the other label on the other side, not only denoting the time frame that all of this happened in, but also who I'm holding in the photos, because that's important too. I know that I started babysitting at 13, so this definitely was an extension of that. When I went to a party or a family event, I definitely went looking for the babies. To finish off this layout, I am going to just bring in some Nuvo drops to add little controlled splattering around my clusters. You will notice that when I use Nuvo drops, it's just around my clusters of embellishments. I don't dot it all around the page. I don't try to mimic the actual Heidi Swapp color shine that I typically use to splatter with. I'm just creating essentially very tiny enamel dots detailing around the clusters. And I find this little detailing really adds so much to the layout. But that's it for this one, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it, and until next time, bye y'all.